Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Wealthy podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Tom McIvor, Associate Director at Link. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
Very, very well. Thank you so much for joining and giving us a bit of your time. I know we're super busy. Hi, so I'm going to just jump straight into it. You are going to be discussing today a Penrith project. And we thought it would be a great idea for you to start giving us a little bit of context about Penrith and what's the opportunity within it. Could you share a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess firstly with Link, we've been around for quite a long time. And what we've realised over the last few years is basically the strength of Western Sydney, and in particular markets like Penrith, um, primarily just because of that sort of safe rental yields, the population growth and those things. So we've actually devoted a high volume of resources into Western Sydney, and we're coming up to nearly 1,000 units at this point.
Okay, all in the Western Sydney area, but in different suburbs, right?
No, that's all in Penrith. So
All in
effectively,
Penrith.
we are resourced basically all across Sydney, all across New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria. But effectively, we over the last 4 or 5 years, we've done about 1,000 units in Penrith, and
Okay.
effectively, it's probably one of the strongest performing markets that we've seen in the off the plan space during the last 5 or 6 volatile years.
And what's driving that growth in Penrith?
Primarily the government. I think that really helps, but you can't underestimate the size of the population there. I mean, at the moment, you're probably looking at about 250,000 people just living in the catchment of Penrith. In the local government area of Penrith. But we're talking about 1 million people, by 2031, living in the Penrith catchment area, and we just do not have enough housing. I mean,
Wow.
typical people live on big bits of land out there, and those bits of land are now starting to be worth a lot of money. So people are actually trying to cash that out, retire, and the best way they can do that is to buy an affordable apartment where they will have no debt. And I think what we're also noticing is that there's a lot less debt in Western Sydney than there is in some other parts of, closer to the beaches and things. So people have a lot more expendable cash to play with. And that means they have the ability to decide whether to buy apartments or to basically go on holidays and things like that. There's a lot more of that stuff happening out west than there is closer towards the city.
Okay, and you mentioned the government is doing a lot to drive that growth. So, what are the types of investments coming from the government in that area?
Well, funnily enough, with Penrith, it's a bit different. So you have obviously the airport, which is only about 15 minutes away from Penrith, which is driving a lot of the sort of younger tradies and things like that moving towards renting in Penrith.
Okay.
That keeps our vacancy rate at about 1.8%. So they're
Oh,
focusing, which is incredible. So they're focusing primarily on the airport there, but also they've invested heavily in creating an education precinct in Penrith. So there's already about 3 or 4 universities, and Western Sydney University dominating that space. But they're all undergoing massive growth. So basically, they're expanding their entire campuses with the support of Penrith councils and local governments, and also transport. It's impossible to ignore the transport. Back onto the education, though, that brings students. Students are renting. They're renting in the apartments that we're building and that we're delivering. Keeping the vacancy rates incredibly low, the yields very high, and then basically driving the government to focus on transport links and those sorts of things for those students or for those people working in the city or Parramatta, just because the population is growing so rapidly.
wow, that's amazing. And I didn't know there were so many students in the area. So it's incredible to know they're driving that low vacancy rates. And can you expand a little bit more when you were saying about the transport and connectivity? What's happening in that space?
Yeah, so of course, I think the simplest thing to look at is where are these people working? So where are these? So the demographic, to sort of explain that, the demographic of Penrith has shifted from an older population to a younger family sort of demographic with lots of students and people with firstborn babies and things like that. And the question is, why are they moving to Penrith and not other parts of Western Sydney? And that's predominantly because of the transport. So all of our units are basically within 200 metres of Penrith Station, which is one of the busiest stations in Western Sydney, and effectively one of the most connected stations in Western Sydney. So what you can do from Penrith is you can get on a normal train and be in Parramatta in half an hour, or be in the city in an hour. okay, just under an hour. But now the government's allowed basically every half an hour there will be a fast train, which has already started, which can get you to Parramatta in 15 minutes and to the city in just over about 40 minutes.
Wow.
So what that's done now, and they've done that because of the population growth, because we're talking about 1 million people living in this space. Now, they're not all going to be working in Parramatta in the city, but a large proportion of them are now becoming professionals because they're being educated at Western Sydney University. And all of that sort of rolls into people not necessarily all being blue-collar workers, but we're actually getting a lot of white-collar workers moving towards that area as well, and they're buying real estate as opposed to renting the real estate. So
that's great context for Penrith, and understanding you just covered how the population has been massively growing. It's becoming younger, highly educated. There is a lot of investments from the government and a lot of employment in the area with the Western Sydney Airport, but also people commuting and having that accessibility, which all sounds like whenever we talk from a wealthy perspective, we use the PIES methodology and we look at population growth, investment in infrastructure, and employment growth just to check on the demand part. And it's clear there's tons of demand. Now, can I ask, what's the supply situation looking like?
Yeah, of course. So I think on our side, basically, we started selling apartments in about 2013 in the Thornton estate, which is on the north side of the station. Incredibly popular spot. We've done about 800 apartments there so far, and we're about to finish another building of about 150. And then after that, there'll be another building of 150. But the demand for that side of the station has been very high. And to be honest, we've been moving units, between 3 to 5 units a week, even during this coronavirus period. So there's obviously demand.
Wow.
Now, on the other side of the station, there is a bit of an issue because some people don't quite understand where the demand sits in Penrith from a price point perspective, from a what kind of apartment do we need to build perspective, like what do we need to supply the market, trying to dictate the market a little bit and leaving a bit of supply on the other side. The issue with a lot of those guys is that they can't afford to do things like price reductions and that sort of stuff. So they will basically have to hold on to all that stock for a while, or alternatively sell those sites. So when we're talking supply about 2 years ago, there was a lot of units on the market. Now, because a lot of those other projects couldn't get off the ground or couldn't get started, they're now basically contemplating selling sites and those sorts of things. So they probably won't be built for another 3 or 4 years, a lot of them. Now, back on our side of the station, every client we've dealt with on this side, we're working with Urban Property Group right now, who are our third client on this side of the station. They decided to fund the construction themselves, regardless of the outcome of sales. Now, if you show that commitment to Penrith, effectively what that means is this product will get built regardless. And effectively, it is a lot easier to move that stock as there's a guarantee to the purchasers that it's getting built. And they can either have a tenant in there as quickly as possible in the timeframes that they've planned for. Alternatively, they could be moving in out of their parents' house or downsizing into a bigger apartment, to a smaller property in the timeframes that they want and that they've organised. So from a supply perspective, we really don't have that much coming on the market anymore. Everything that has come on the market came on the market during the good times and has struggled to move. And now we're basically, because of that, people look at our stuff, they go back and look at other stuff, come back to us, they buy. We're running out of apartments to sell. Everyone else on the other side of the station is still sort of struggling to move some stuff.
Okay. So basically we've seen the supply at a peak a couple of years ago, and ever since it started to be less supply coming into the market, and now there's a few sites that are on hold whilst you guys are still building. So you have a few things in the pipeline, but there's less and less coming, right? Is that correct?
And basically the supply on the north, basically to keep things simple, the supply in North Penrith on our side of the station, we're basically running out of apartments to sell.
Okay.
So that's where apartment living has been accepted in Western Sydney. Because remember, Western Sydney, they're not 100% used to living in apartments.
Yes.
Now, the other thing, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, is that the reason that Penrith is accepting apartments is because there's actually been a massive shift in the type of people and I guess the demographics living there. There is a massive presence of multiculturalism now, and some people would never have believed that 10 years ago. So we have an incredibly strong Korean contingent. We have an incredibly strong Chinese contingent. And what that means is during this period of coronavirus, when they're pulling money out of their home countries or whatever that is, they're actually making a lot of money on our dollar as well.
Mm.
So currently that's keeping supply down because we're selling a lot of units to those kind of clients right now. And they
Okay.
are moving here and they'll live in these units and go to Western Sydney University, for example.
Okay, so a lot of very young, like the younger demographic going to the university
Yeah,
from abroad, and we've seen Australia grow through migration, and we know that a good amount of migrants like to go to the big cities like Sydney and Melbourne,
exactly.
and especially Western Sydney suburbs have grown a lot through that highly skilled migration.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to just change a little bit the subject and ask about one particular project, which is the Lumina development. That if you could give us a little bit of background and what it is and etc. I know you've been introducing it already.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So Lumina is probably one that we're really proud of. So we're going to be nominating it through a lot of different award processes. We're very excited. This one was tough because we had an original DA with Urban Property Group, and then we basically sat down and said, look, the original DA was sort of dictating to the market what we were selling to them. So what we did is we actually cost us and the client a bit, but we spent about 6 months just gauging what the market would really want. And now we've been able to deliver a product with substantially bigger apartments, and split bedrooms, all the positive things you look for in an apartment. Every single apartment people get excited about. It's amazing. The architectural designs on the outside, we've got sheer brick rendering, but effectively it's 150 apartments, right, 200 meters from Penrith Station, large 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. There's 1 4-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
But effectively, we're averaging about 82 to 83 internal, all with large outdoor spaces, north-facing views of the Blue Mountains. And to be honest, it's been quite unprecedented because we took that to market mid last year when we thought, basically the marketplace had sort of shut down, and we've sold just over half in that period. So, and that just shows the first demand for a quality product, but also just the sheer demand for apartments in Penrith. And with Lumina, I think it's been really special because we've been able to deliver new communal spaces for these buildings that haven't been seen before in Penrith. Urban Property Group are basically delivering split level, rooftop gardens and all these things, which sounds standard across New South Wales. But once you actually get into the nitty gritty of it, you've never seen these types of spaces before. Places you can walk your dog outside your apartment, but on your roof, little things like this, because we know the demographic and we know what type of people are living there. We basically built this for Penrith as opposed to tell them what we're building.
That's amazing. I really love how you started with the market research and really understanding who's going to be living, even if who's buying it is different, who's going to be living in it. That's really great, really understanding, putting the client first. And I'm guessing that's what makes it very unique versus everything that is out there. And why would people choose to live in Lumina versus other places, right? Thank you for sharing that. Like, that's amazing. And can I ask, for people watching this video right now and they're wondering, like it all sounds good, but should I just sit and wait, or what should I do? Are there any buyer's incentives or anything attracting people to seize the opportunity right now?
Of course. So, for example, with Lumina, as I was saying before, there's obviously a lot of investors coming out from overseas or actually coming locally as well, looking to put their money somewhere and noticing that the big question of when's the bottom of this market, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's quite funny is coronavirus has, I guess, it shed some positive light on all of this, has actually found the bottom for us in real estate. Effectively, there was a point during coronavirus where, vacancy rates were, not vacancy rates, auction clearance rates were at 26% and all this sorts of stuff. And yet we're still seeing 5 to 6 sales a week in Penrith. So there's obviously a strong marketplace there. Now, the incentives that are being offered for our investor clients at the moment is because some people get sort of cautious when we say to them, look, you're getting 4.5 to 5% yield on your 2-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom apartment or whatever it is. So we basically said, look, if you're nervous about that, what we'll do is we'll lock ourselves into a 5% rental guarantee for 2 years.
Wow.
Okay, and that just shows our confidence in the Penrith market. So we'll do that for your investors, and then for our own occupiers, for our 2-bedroom apartments, we're basically allowing them to have ducted air conditioning, as well as our 3-bedroom apartments, as well as the higher levels have already been fully upgraded in regards to their finishes.
So you're getting a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, but I think that's the value you're getting now, because of the current period we're in. But also, we're about to finish the building, so the building's about to be finished in about November. Okay. Everything's nearly all built, and the scaffolding's starting to come down. So what's happening now is we're seeing inquiry ramp up substantially. So I think realistically, the opportunity is to get into the market, an average price of about 530,000, where we were typically selling units like this at around 580,000 less than 3 years ago. We're seeing the market shift towards an increase in inquiry. I think the best opportunity is to get in now before you firstly miss out on a unit you might have loved, and obviously missed out on our amazing incentives, or whether you decide to wait and you miss the opportunity to actually get into the bottom of the real estate market.
This is one of the developments that I like the most. And I think you've explained it so much better than what I could have explained it to the client. So for sure, whenever anyone is listening to this podcast and you want to know more, of course, you can consult any of the Wealthy team members. But I will be sharing this podcast with anyone who's interested in the Penrith area, because this is brilliant, amazing information. Tom, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you would like to add before we just wrap up?
No, not at all. I think all I can add is, if you're investing in the real estate market, I think Penrith will really surprise you. I'm from the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and I sort of was a bit concerned 3 or 4 years ago when I heard the idea of, we're doing 800 apartments in Penrith. But doing all that research and seeing all the fundamentals, and having our chairman vouch for the whole area himself, and most of our team at Link have actually bought an apartment in Penrith. It was really surprising, and now I can't believe that it's outperforming markets like the Lower North Shore and eastern suburbs in regards to sales volume. It's insane, and I would say do the research, have a look, and it will surprise you.
That's absolutely amazing. Thank you for that, and hope to see you again in another of our podcast series with experts sharing what they're working on. And thank you so much, and see you around.
Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.